Hi Year 11 and welcome to your feedback for your first Year 11 economics task. We're actually going to start with part B, so if you can have your answer sheet in front of you as well as the question booklet. The first thing I would like you to do is I would like you to double check that the answers here, okay, match the marking of your piece of paper. Okay, so essentially you're just double checking that I have ticked and crossed in the correct order. I am human, there may be a mistake. So if you could check that now, if there is a mistake, come and see me and we will obviously make that change. Okay, so talking about part B, there were a number of questions that as a cohort we struggled with. Question 3 and question 10 were two of those questions. It's really important that you continue to practice the annotations and the elimination strategies that we have already spoken about. Question 10 in particular was quite particular. It used the word increase in demand and hence a non-price factor. Okay, in my opinion, that was the section that tripped most students up as to why they got it wrong. A sounds like the right answer, a decrease in the price, but that would actually cause an expansion in the demand. So remember that really important language there. Question 13 and question 20 were also across the cohort, not done as well. Question 13 was a little bit tricky because of the wording. So as you can see, I actually needed to draw an arrow and I actually had to rewrite option D for me to be able to understand it. If you got it wrong, I would hope that you would have picked A. So A is the best wrong answer. Okay, sounds a little bit funny. B and C aren't really correct. At least if you picked A, you were thinking along the right lines. It's just that the opposite would have happened. Question 20 was the calculation question that flowed on from question 19. I'm not going to go through this now, but as you can see, one of the strategies that I used before I attempted 19 or 20 was to actually add my savings column. Okay, so by adding my savings column, it meant that it was much easier for both questions than actually doing the maths whilst doing this calculation as well. So you might want to annotate that on your feedback sheet, that's something that you could potentially do in the future. All right, have a look through your own response and see if there was any other questions that you really thought you understood but you got wrong. And of course, come and have a chat to me in person and we can go through those. We did excel as a cohort in a number of questions. Question 4 on the law of demand, question 5 on scarcity. Question 12, you guys did a great job on interpreting the possibility, frontier or curve, and the basic income calculation of question 19 was also done well. So, having a look at your answers, having a look at the feedback, okay, seeing if your questions kind of fit in or aligned with the cohort's strengths and weaknesses. I want you to circle on this ruler. How confident did you feel before this multiple choice exam? So 1, you had very little confidence, or 10, you had a high level of confidence and you felt highly prepared. Once you've done that, can you answer the next 3 questions? What influenced your confidence in a positive way? Possibly what hindered or limited your confidence? And what could you change or what would you change about your preparation for future tasks? Would you do something differently or would you do something the same because you think it worked? So have a go at those 3 questions now. Okay, moving on to the next part of the syllabus, it really links with that afternoon session that we did. You need to remember that the multiple choice for HSC economics is always tough, okay? Often they are multiple step questions to get the 1 mark. And we have spoke about this idea of economic reasoning and it being a thinking process that requires you to not only remember key concepts, apply your understanding, as well as be confident in eliminating and improving a selection. So rate your use of economic reasoning. Did you feel like you were able to do this? Yes, that green, excellent. or do you think that you still have a fair bit of work to do? The second thing that I want you to rate yourself on is having a look through your question paper, not your answer sheet, but your question paper. Have a flick through now. Yes, now. So hopefully you're doing that. If not, hurry up. You then need to think about how well did you use annotations. You might say that you had a very high use at the start of the paper, but by the end of the paper you were running out of time and therefore it dropped off, okay? Give yourself a rating there, and you may even want to put start of the paper, end of the paper. Do you think that your use of economic reasoning and annotations impacted upon your mark? Why or why not? And remember, guys, this is the first time that you've done an economics assessment task. Overall, I was fairly happy with the multiple choice. They were not easy questions. And most of us did a really good job of giving every question a good crack. And maybe it was just little gaps in our knowledge that was our major limitation. So have a go at that question now for me. Okay, we're now essentially going to put the multiple choice away. So if you want to move that from your desk and grab out your extended response. We're going to look at this feedback in two main areas. The first area is skills. So these are these ideas about how to answer a question, how to construct a response. And the content is more on what information was given. It's really important that we develop both our skills and our content knowledge throughout the prelim course to set us up when we start the HSC in term 4. So, skills are transferable. These are going to help you in the HSC, and therefore we really need to develop and build upon these this year because they are going to make a difference when we start the HSC course. So, here is a list of the main skills that I think we need to develop on our way to the HSC. Our ability to integrate data and evidence to prove our economic ideas, show relationships and connections between concepts, ensuring that we are writing with clarity, using a topic sentence correctly, and creating sophisticated ideas that include relevant economic relationships. Now, you will see that this idea of relationships comes up twice, and I actually added it in that second time with the idea of sophistication and complexity, because that was probably one of our areas of weakness, was showing how things are connected, showing a cause and an economic implication. So, you need to pause the video now and you need to rate your confidence. How confident do you feel in each of these skills? So 10, you're as confident as possible. 1, not confident at all. And then can you think of an idea or something that you can do to improve on this skill before the next assessment task? And we're going to have a chat about these as a class. So pause now and complete this. Okay, moving on to content. You've really got to think about content in a number of ways. Firstly, do I know my content is 100% correct? Well, it should have been, is the hand in response. Is the content I'm providing relevant? And that's often an area where students let themselves down, that the content that they're providing, although it's correct, it's not actually relevant to the question, or it's not helping them build that answer or earn those marks. And thirdly, have I actually provided enough depth? I wrote this on more than one student's work. They needed to write better on less. So many responses tried to give too many ideas and therefore they didn't provide enough depth, okay? So sometimes you have to write more or better on less. So you have to streamline your approach so that you can provide depth. Take a note of that if that's yourself, yeah? Make a comment here, write something down that I need to write more or less or something like that. For some of you, that was not the case. So you really need to read your individual feedback, which you should have already done, to make sure that if it was you, that you address that for your next assessment. So the first part of the criteria looked at this idea of comparison, okay? Many students did not link to quality of life enough throughout the response. And it was like it was an afterthought. It was like, oh yeah, employment, oh yeah, environmental sustainability, and I'll just put one link to it at the end of the paragraph. You might want to annotate that you needed to have this earlier in paragraph structure. So maybe start the paragraph with quality of life. Have quality of life or these HDI indicators throughout the response, not just at the end of the paragraph with a simple sentence. Many responses did not show any similarities. Okay, it is important that you try and address some similarities. Yes, Australia is fairly different to the 3 economies that you had to choose from, but there is some overlap, okay, and many responses did not address this at all. What I now want you to do is to complete this table using your response. So, what quality of life measures did you give? Did you give data to support it? Was it comparative data? Yes. If yes, write them in. If no, maybe write a no, and that kind of tells you something. Did you have a clear connection between your ideas of quality of life at a sentence level? Meaning, did you integrate those areas of employment, unemployment, and environmental sustainability with quality of life, within the one sentence? Or was your comparison at different sentence level? So you had information on employment, then later on in a separate sentence, you linked to quality of life. We want to see that connection at a sentence level, and many of you didn't do that, and that's something that we can work on. The next bit I want you to look at is, were you brave? Did you, draw out the ideas of poverty or low quality of life? Could you find sentences in your response that would have benefited from a stronger comparison? Clear difference. Notably, the quality of life has or is extremely different. Okay, so really using that language. Would you integrate links to quality of life earlier in your paragraphs if you were to reattempt this? That's a bit of a yes/no, depending upon your response. And then would you alter the percentage of the response devoted to similarities? Have a look at that, complete that now. Okay, the next part was looking at your 3 areas, and you will see on your marking criteria that I have circled employment, unemployment, and environmental sustainability separately. Some of you did a great job of all 3, where other people did a fantastic job of one, yet another one wasn't as strong. So I've tried to show you that in the marking and through that marking criteria. I want you to read these questions. I'm not going to read them to you now, but I really want you to think about, did you provide the content? And if you have a look, it needed to be a sophisticated integration at an A level. Now, it is our first assessment task. We need to remember that we're still building our vocab and our economic understanding, but that is essentially where we want to move to. So, pause now, circle your yes or no for each question. Okay. You should now have circles on yes or no, depending upon your response. I now want you to think about, what do your answers to these questions reveal to you? Did you have a section where it was a noticeable no? Yeah, I really didn't do that. And then what does that tell you about your response and your attempt? Okay. Most of us really tried to use economic terms, and that was fantastic. Overall, I was fairly happy. I wasn't, jumping over the moon, but I certainly wasn't crying either. What I want you to have a go at is to try and fill this table with your economic terms and concepts, okay? So pause and do that now. Okay, your table should now be full. What you've got to look at, though, is that this criteria point, and it actually comes from an outcome, looks at the idea of relationships. And this is where we really need to focus, okay? We struggled to clearly show at a sentence level the connections, not just to quality of life, but also other related economic concepts. So often you will see, I will say, link this to on your in-text feedback. make a connection with. So have a look and really think about how happy are you with the connections that you made. Do you think that this idea of relationships is something that you need to work on moving forward? Okay. Integrating data and figures which has been referenced correctly. Using effective data and evidence is fundamentally important in economics. It is a key, okay, to success. It is important not just to mention data though, but actually draw out the meaning of it, so applying it. It is important that you show an effect or extent with data, be it, large, small, positive, negative, etc. The first thing I want you to think about is how much data did you provide? Okay, so choose a number there. 10, data was integrated in all sections. 1, I didn't really have much at all. So think about where you think you sit along that scale. After you've thought about how much, think about now, did you draw meaning from it? So did you link the data to quality of life as well as the cause area such as employment? Or did you just give that data and go, oh, yep, done. There you go, I've given you that data. Miss said we needed to include data. Now I've given it, and that's it. Also think, though, about how effective was your data. Did it actually link with the content? One thing you might want to write down here, guys, is that many students were writing about the participation rate, and it was very obvious that you didn't quite understand what the participation rate was, okay? The participation rate is a measure of the supply of labour, so all of those people willing to work. The participation rate, though, also includes those who are unemployed. So participation is actually employed plus unemployed, what we call the labour force. So it's really important that when you look at participation, you're looking at how many people are willing to work, okay, how many people are working, when compared to what we call the working age population. So that's probably something where people were giving data and it actually didn't help. It wasn't effective, okay? Did you give too much data and therefore you didn't actually explore it? You need to come up with these statements and these reflections yourself. So have a go at all of this now. Okay, lastly was structure. And guys, we've done a good job. Pretty much everybody knows how to write an extended response. An intro, a body with paragraphs, and a conclusion. Great. I'm really glad that we don't need to spend really any time on that. At a paragraph level, it does need to be our focus, and we need to look at the ideas of using a topic sentence well, having multiple E's, and not being afraid to put evidence at the top of your paragraph. So you might want to add an annotation here talking about the complexity of your paragraphs and putting evidence towards the top. Because if you give evidence towards the beginning of your paragraph, you can then explore what that data shows. Okay, our sentences were fairly good, and I think that was because this was a hand-in task. Variety is key. And I want you to have a look in your response now and see if you can find a simple sentence and if you can provide a complex sentence, and then write them out here. Simple sentences generally have one main idea with no commas or anything like that. A complex sentence is where you will have one idea which is then linked to a subsequent idea. You usually have a comma or a semicolon or something like that to show the extension of the idea and some type of connection at a sentence level. Guys, it's really important that we use a combination, okay, of simple, complex, and compound sentences. So, overall, guys, I want you to think about how happy you were in terms of your achievement in this task. And it's really important that you reflect not only on the content, but also on the skills, because those skills are really going to help us as we move forward. So, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you've finished all the activities throughout. We will have a bit of a debrief in an upcoming lesson, so please make sure you have all of this done. And as always, if you have any questions or issues, please come and see me. Thanks, Year 11.